Okay, yes, I watched it. I watched Heads of State. I had to for this piece. It's a new Amazon movie with John Cena and Idris Elba. I hope I pronounced the names correctly. Yeah, that one. And listen, it's not just an action comedy. I mean, sure, it looks like one. You get the wisecracks, more dead bodies that you can even count by the first opening scene, the car chases, the obligatory global threat that somehow only two guys can stop. But the whole time I was watching, it was clear this isn't just another movie. It's a slick piece of propaganda. And I'm going to show you exactly how they pulled it off. Now, if you want the full breakdown, like the names, the backers, the funding, internal documents, the psychological strategies, all of it tied directly into NATO's cognitive warfare program, which, let's be honest, most people even didn't know exist. That's all in the expose I posted on Substack. It's way deeper than I can unpack here, unless of course you already follow me. And in this case, you probably already saw it. But back to the film, because here's where it gets really interesting. They say the word NATO over 20 times. I counted 20 times to be exact. Let's have a look.
Before he heads to a NATO summit in Italy.
NATO, okay? With help of a NATO task force. Today's about NATO. NATO being NATO.
NATO members.
Fabric of NATO.
NATO
If NATO falls,
by NATO.
is the NATO.
NATO.
On the future of NATO.
The NATO alliance.
So from the start, it's clear this is not just lazy script writing. You know, fillers, that kind of thing. I realize this is deliberate. The movie wants NATO to be a deliberate character, not just backdrop, a moral compass, a punchline, a savior. There's the scene where John gives the key speech of the movie, and it sounds really like it came straight out of a NATO press release. And no, I'm not exaggerating. He is literally saying, and I quote, "NATO is what the world needs right now." And the audience, that's you, is just supposed to nod along and feel good about it. Like we're all being prepped for a war bonds commercial. Here it comes.
On behalf of the United Kingdom and the United States of America, take it all down several notches, everyone. That's right. You're not getting rid of us that easy. We are not getting rid of this alliance that easy because we all have a job to do. I get it. You're embarrassed. You're angry. But we need NATO. We need partnerships. We need to treat each other with respect, embrace each other's differences, and lean into our commonalities. To send a message to future generations that we were here, that we did the right thing. And that starts by taking the fight for the very real enemies we face.
There are other great speeches too, like this one from the female US president in the movie who ran her primary on America first. Rings a bell?
You ran your primaries on America first.
And here is her speech.
Simone, I am allowing you to be in this room out of respect for Will.
Allowing me.
But please don't ever insinuate that I am not all in on this alliance. If NATO falls, there's no more backstop against despots and dictators. They run unchecked. It could set off a series of events that would destabilize Europe and the rest of the world. We are talking about the potential for increased conflict, chaos, and the very real threat of war on a global scale.
Or the next one, my personal favorite, because it's so manipulative. And this is also where it gets particularly slippery, because it plays both sides of the chessboard. It stokes fear of manipulation while actively manipulating the respective audience, in the film and in the movie. It pretends to arm you against propaganda, but it's already doing the very thing it claims to warn you about. The most manipulative line in the whole thing, it's this: someone out there is trying to manipulate us. That's the hook. That's the move. Because the moment someone says that, and says it with just enough concern, just enough urgency, your guard goes up, but only against the others, not them. And that's exactly the trick. They build trust by pointing at the threat, whilst quietly slipping in their own manipulation. They're framing their villains, their heroes, under your radar. It's manipulation dressed up as protection from manipulation, which honestly is the most effective kind there is. It's a psychological sleight of hand, like a magic trick. You're not being invited to think freely. On the contrary, you're being trained to reflexively reject certain views before you've even heard them in full. The fear of being fooled becomes the very mechanisms that fools you. Listen carefully.
At the CIA, we had a saying: the strength of the organization is the individual. The strength of the individual is the organization. The collective that sits in this room is the living embodiment of that. And someone out there is manipulating us, trying to tear us apart. So let's send whoever's behind this a message. Swing in the other direction. Double down on NATO. Let it be known that if you try and break this bond, it will only make us stronger.
And this is why I started digging. Because whenever a movie makes you feel like you're being sold something, chances are you are. So get this, Heads of State is produced by Amazon. Not just distributed, produced. You know, the same Amazon that owns MGM.
Amazon announced on Thursday that its $8.5 billion deal to buy the iconic MGM movie and television studio was now complete, making more than 4,000 film titles, including the Oscar-nominated Licorice Pizza and James Bond franchise, part of the e-commerce giant's streaming video service.
That's the very same Amazon that, through AWS, runs massive cloud infrastructure for, guess whom? Right, NATO. And it's not even a secret. It's publicly available information. Amazon literally brags on their website about how they support high-sensitive organizations like NATO and the US government. So now this starts to make a lot more sense. If you're Amazon and you want to reinforce your role as tech partner to the West security apparatus, why not make a fun, digestible, prime-time ready piece of entertainment that sells NATO as the good guys? And the timing. Really? Could it be more perfect or more suspicious? I mean, 2025 is a mess. People are burned out on Ukraine. Gaza's left a lot of people disillusioned. And now, yep, looks like we are pivoting straight into a hot war with China. I've reported on this before. So naturally, people are starting to question the whole military spending thing again. And media trust? Well, it basically is scraping the floor. I think Gallup just put it at 28%, and that was quite recently. So, here's the play. Instead of another think tank white paper or some stiff official briefing, what do you do? In NATO's place, what would you do? Well, you give people a buddy comedy. A glossy, streaming-friendly flick that quietly delivers the message without ever admitting that there was a message. It's the same trick influencers were running when some of them got paid up to 150 grand a month by Israel. Yep, seriously. To slip in propaganda between latte reviews, nail polish and makeup tutorials. Smile, sip, endorse. If you want the receipts on that little operation, yep, I got the names, the figures, it's all on my Substack. Now, here's where it's getting smart and sinister, depending on your angle. Because when you package ideology in humor and action, people don't resist it. They don't question it. They are not expecting a hidden propaganda payload. They're just here for the ride. And that brings us to the concept of cognitive warfare. This is NATO's own term, and again, I have reported on this before. And it's not sci-fi. It's in their strategic documents. They define it as shaping how people process information, not controlling what you know, but controlling how you think about what you know. It's about emotions, impressions, cognitive biases. And what's the best delivery system for that? Not news, not think tanks. Stories, entertainment. And that's exactly what this movie does. It frames NATO as moral, benevolent, indispensable. And it does so in a genre where you are really least likely to expect ideological messaging. Comedy action. It uses charm, timing, character archetypes. You've got the American president as a wisecrack hero, the British PM as a loyal warrior, of course, and the bad guys, surprise, they're not only anti-NATO, they look and feel a lot like Russians. Of course they do. This is where it gets really interesting. Because this strategy, this use of entertainment to pacify, it's not new. Back in the 90s, Brzezinski, yeah, the same guy who warned against pushing Russia in the arms of China, propagated a new term for it. Titainment. Yep, titainment. Crude name, sure, but deadly serious. He used it to describe how, in a world where automation and globalization were making more and more people economically useless, his words, not mine, the solution wasn't jobs or justice. It was sedation, emotional sedation. And how? Well, keep the masses passive with a cocktail of screens, spectacle, cheap thrills, and just enough basic substance, again his words, to stop them from burning the place down. Bread and circuit, but digitized. Now, I can imagine you might think, okay, that was probably just some offhand backroom joke. It wasn't. It was a serious discussion. This idea was laid out during the 1995 State of the World Forum in San Francisco, convened by no other than Michael Gorbachev, with Brzezinski, George H.W. Bush, Margaret Thatcher, Ted Turner, they were all in the room. So, heads of state fits that model perfectly. It's not about informing you. It's all about keeping you entertained, tititained, as Brzezinski called it, whilst reinforcing the ideological scaffolding, meaning NATO, that holds the current world order together virtually at gunpoint. And it's slick enough that you don't even notice it's happening. This means, of course, that Heads of State isn't just another summer action movie you enjoy with some popcorn and then forget it. It's a textbook case study in modern propaganda. This is affective warfare wrapped in punchlines. It wears comedy like a mask, and underneath that mask is something way more calculated and way more dangerous. The jokes, the explosion, the buddy cop banter, all of that's the delivery system. The payload is ideological. It sells NATO not as a military alliance, but as a moral anchor, as the good guy. It doesn't argue, it assumes. It doesn't persuade, it conditions. And it's effective. It's effective precisely because it bypasses all the usual psychological defenses. No one sits down for an action comedy expecting to get politically programmed. But that's exactly the trick. Your guard is down, you're laughing, you're relaxed, and that's where the message slides in. It's like a mental Trojan horse. You think you're watching an Idris Elba crack joke about bureaucracy, but what you're really absorbing is a strategic narrative, a worldview. Who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, what alliances matter and why, who gets to save the day and who gets to die. And by the time you see all the credits at the end, the ideas are already installed in your brain. No debate, no counterpoint, just repetition, reinforcement, and emotional association. That's how cognitive warfare works. Not with force, but with framing, with rhythm, with narrative. And Head of State nails it. And that's why it matters. Because when entertainment starts talking like a government, you should probably start listening a little closer. Anyway, that's where I'm at. If you watch it and thought that was fun, you were not wrong. But you might also want to ask, fun for who? And if this sparked your interest or even just made you raise an eyebrow, the full expose is up on my Substack. That's where I can really go deep with names, documents, funding trails, the whole web. No time limits, no algorithmic throttling, just the facts and the framework. So yeah, if you've got the time, or if your attention span hasn't been completely pulverized by the dopamine economy or TikTok shorts, I really recommend reading it. And look, if you found this useful or maddening or just worth thinking about, Subscribing, liking, sharing, or just leaving a comment. It helps more than you think. Especially for channels like mine that live under the shadowban cloud, where visibility is basically trench warfare. But hey, no pressure. Do what feels right. But for me, that's it today. Over and out.